Everybody here that doesn't have a radio already, go ahead and make your way over to the arsenal crate and use your Ace Interact. Let's look at the backpacks. So you're going to see inside the arsenal crate that there's going to be multiple radio packs. For this server, I highly suggest that you guys just, if you don't have the First Contact DLC, don't worry about it. We have backpacks for that reason. You're going to look at for the RT1523G ASIP backpacks. It doesn't matter which one you take, the big, the black, the fabric, the green, the long range radio, Sage. Just have one of the RTs on your back. I highly suggest using one of those.
Wait, if we have the contact DLC, which one can we use?
Say again? It specifically says ASIPs, and that's going to be like RTT. Let me look at the number real quick.
It's going to be. We can just use like any contact radio pack?
No, that's what I'm saying. If you don't have the DLC, I highly suggest use the RT radios. It should be fine. No, honestly, so I don't know how that's going to work with the new DLC coming out too. So typically RHS and the TFAR stuff work better with the RT radios in the first place. You can use the contact ones. I'm just saying that these are the best.
Okay, so so you said the 1523Gs?
Yep.
What's the long range 20-kilometer one?
So they're all 20 kilometers. I don't know why that one says that. They're all technically 20K. Yeah. Alright, let me know. I'm going to check everyone. Alright, so if you've never used the long range radio before, to adjust your radio settings, it's going to be Alt-P. Yep. So it's going to pull up a little bit different looking radio here. So understand that your channels are going to be the number buttons on the screen. So you're going to have one is channel 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. So your Freq, F-R-E-Q button is going to be your set frequency button. So I want everyone to click on the screen where it says, it's going to say channel CH and then 1, and then it's going to have some numbers after that. Switch that number to 71.
Now, is this separate than the default radio that we have?
Say again?
The handheld? Is this separate than the default like handheld radio that we have?
Are you asking how it's different?
Yeah, like.
So one, it is very different. So your range to how far you can talk to people is insurmountably larger. So the short range, the little handheld ones, have got maybe a kilometer base range. The handheld goes across about half the map. The long range goes across about half the map.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Before we continue with this, if you didn't figure it out, it is not the same as your handheld radios for the buttons that you need for push to talk for the radios. For your radios, you're going to use Control Caps Lock and then Control T when you have your second radio up. Don't worry about that right now. We'll get into that in a little bit. But just understand that Control Caps Lock and Control T are to use your long range. So you can still talk on your short range and to the units that are close to you. So let's say you're on the ground and you've got all the infantry standing around you. Instead of blowing up the long range channels, you can just talk on your handheld by just using caps locks and T. But if you need to talk to anything that's on long range, you need to hit Control Caps Lock and then Control T. We're going to go into setting up your alternate radio channels. So this is going to be almost the exact same process as your short range. It's just you're going to have to do it on your long range as well. So right now we have 71 set up on the long range. However, as a JTAC, you have more than one responsibility, and you're not just talking to birds the entire time. You're going to have units like Phantom out there, which are the Special Forces unit, or infantry units who are going to be requesting for you to have the Apache or Reapers, which are the strike aircraft like the A-10, fly over and hit targets. So you also need to be able to communicate with the ground forces as well. So what we're going to do is you're going to hit Alt-P and pull your radio back up. And you're going to see how it says Channel 1, 71. Just underneath the FREQ, the Freq button, you're going to see ERF offset. That's going to be your set additional channel button. If you click that, you're going to see CA1. Does everyone see CA1?
Got it. CA1?
Yep. All right, so that means that this is going to be your secondary channel. Now, you see the number 2, and you're going to click channel 2. And it's going to say CH2, and then it's going to have some random number there. You guys see that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So for training purposes, we're going to be on 31. But when you're on the ground, you need to be on 30. Long range 30 is all the ground commands on long range. So that's your actual, that's all the assassin squad leads and phantoms. They're all going to be on this long range. So you got to make sure that when you're talking on this, you're not stepping over other people. This is for them to feed you information on what is going on the ground, so then you can pass it to the birds on long range 70 to let them know what is going on and where the birds need to be for either LZs or attack runs, or communicating with pilots there, because the ground forces could be using laser technology for the laser designator or drones. They could already be lasing up targets. So the fighter aircraft and Reaper could already line up their guns with the laser that they've already set up and drop a bomb on the target, or use other forms of munitions to strike that target. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So go ahead and click on the screen and change that to 31.
Okay, channel 2 set to 31.
You're going to have to hit set frequencies, so you're going to have to hit the freak button after you're done with that. So after you've done that, go ahead and hit Control Caps Lock, and it's going to pull up frequency 31. So just understanding that you're also going to have your handheld radio set up on 2 frequencies and your long range radio set up on 2 frequencies. All of you guys know how to set up your second frequency on your short range radio?
I've never done that before.
Okay, so it's going to be a very similar process. You're going to hit Control P to pull up your short range radio.
Okay, got it.
So your short range radio, typically what you're going to want to have as a JTAC is your channel 1 wants to be on 100. So short range 100 is similar to what 30 is on long range. This is so you can communicate short range, so in a short distance, to all the leads in the area. Again, you're going to be having people talk on this, so it's really important that you don't cut people off. So for right now, you're going to have it as 100.1. So you're going to type in 100, hit the period button, and then hit 1. Now, to have your secondary channel up on your short range, you're going to pull up Control P again. You're going to see a arrow that points to the left. That's going to say set additional channel. You're going to click it, and it's going to say A1 100.1. Now you're going to hit set frequency again, so you're going to hit the enter button. So unlike the other long range radio, there are no numbers to just jump from channel to channel. You have the plus and minus symbol on the PRE button, and you're going to either hit up or down. So it's going to be next channel, previous channel. So go ahead and hit the plus button, and this is say C2. You are now on channel 2. So this channel is really helpful depending on who's leading. You can either have it on 190, which is the medical net for close range, or you can have an internal close range between you and whoever is the actual, or whoever's the CO leading the attack. It's up to them to decide, and you need to ask them what they want you on. So 100 is your ability to communicate close range with all the ground forces. So channel 2 is going to be whatever radio frequency they want you to be on. So either listening to 190, the medical channel, or if the actual wants to have direct private communications with you, he's going to set you up with another channel here. So for training purposes, we're going to go 191. All right, so let's go through this right now. So when you guys push either your caps lock or your T button on the bottom right hand of your screen, it's actually going to show up which frequency you're on. So if you ever get confused on what you're talking, because now you have 4 different frequencies set up, and they're listening to all 4 of them differently, it's going to be a chaos. And so you need to know which one you're talking to people on, and that's why it's really important to state which channel you're talking on. So as JTAC, you're going to say so-and-so, whatever their call sign is. This is JTAC talking on long range, whatever you're trying to communicate on. So you guys are going to get a lot of people who don't quite grasp that concept yet of letting you know who they are and what radio channel they're on. And it's really important that we kind of spread the word as JTACs to make sure that we, in a nice way, don't be mean about it. Just politely tell them, hey, I don't know who's talking to me on what channel. Can you go ahead and say what unit you are in? and what channel you're talking on. And you'll start picking up on the voices of who's talking and when you start JTACing after a while. But it's a good thing to make sure that they're always using that same context of what unit they're with, what channel they're talking on, and so then you guys understand what channel you need to be speaking on, so you're not stepping on other people. Because it's really quiet right now, but if we went to go hop on 70 and 30 and went over to where they're fighting right now, the channels are going to be blowing up right now. So this is going to be a little bit of a ease of life kind of tip too. So go ahead and hit Control P, and that'll pull up your short range radio. So if you look at your short range radio, you have a right facing arrow. It's going to say speakers. I highly suggest, and this is up to your personal preference, but I typically have I'm sorry, not speakers. You're going to go to the stereo settings, far left button. It's going to be the bottom left button. And it's going to say on your bottom right, you have additional left and right. And then when you click it, it's going to go left only, right only. And if you click it a third time, it's going to say left and right. By default, it's always going to be left and right. To help you out and to filter out what is being said on what channels, I highly suggest that you make your short range and you click it once and it'll go left only. Then you can hit escape and hit Alt-P, pull up your long range, and you're going to see a STO button, and it's going to say stereo settings. I highly suggest you hit that, click that twice, and it'll go right only. So to test this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you guys over the short range, and you're going to hear it through your left ear, and then I'm going to call you on long range, and you're going to hear it through your right ear. Radio check 3-1. Do you see what I mean, Mao, by how it's playing through the different ears?
Yep, I heard it in my right ear.
Yep, so that's going to help you guys kind of clarify at what channel it's coming through and what you're being talked on, what channel you're being talked on. So it's an ease of life in the understanding that you're going to have multiple people talking on the same different channels at the same time. So you could have people talking on your short range and your long range at the exact same time. And what this does is it kind of clarifies and you're listening into what is being said, because the number one job of JTAC is filtering out what you need to know. That is your number one job when it comes to the radios, is understanding what is being said and who is trying to communicate with you. So, for example, I am going to call Arkashaw, who's in the bird right now. Arkashaw Lethal, this is Goatman, radio check 7-1.
Lima Charlie 7-1. This is Arkasha on 7-1. I'm touching down to conserve fuel.
So, go again a little bit longer.
This is Arkasha on 7-1. I am touching down to conserve fuel.
You see how I mean that? How that gets a little confusing when you got people talking on the same channels at the same time?
Yeah.
Because you can hear me on 191, and then you can hear him also on long range 7-1. So that's why you put it into having it into separate ears, so you can understand what is being said by who and what you need to listen for. Because him just saying, "Oh, I'm just going to refuel," and me trying to like communicate over the medical net is, that's the point in what separates you from being just the guy with the radio and being JTAC, is your understanding of what needs to be listened to and what is important. All right, so we got a lot of the radio basic stuff down, and we've gone over the long range frequencies, and all of this stuff is going to be in the Google documents on the Discord. If you go to the server infos on the Discord, and then you click on the Google Docs, all of the frequencies for every unit is on there, including the long ranges and what they stand for. So again, your 70 is for talking to your birds on long range, and then long range 30 is talking to ground. And then for your short range, you want to be on 100 so you can talk to the ground on short range. And then your secondary radio channel on your short range is going to be whatever your actual sets up for you. So you need to have that conversation before you guys ever step off. Hey, do you want me listening on 190 for the medical net, or do you want me listening to you? That's a very important conversation to have with them.
Mm-hmm.
Most actuals will just tell you to stay on whatever channel they want specifically for you.
Can you kill the rotors for a minute and just stand by on the airfield?
Affirm, I'm relocating for Circus to do their logi run.
Thank you.
Alright, so next into this is kind of understanding the roles of what type of birds we have. So, the little bird, for example, is going to be considered what we call a stalker. Stalkers are all our aircraft that are only transport focused. They don't have any weaponry on it other than defensive guns to protect them when they land into an LZ. It is really, really helpful and really, really important to know which stalker is in which bird. So you're going to have actual players in here in those specific roles, and if they are flying that bird, their name needs to be in the extended options a stalker. So it's going to be either Stalker 1, Stalker 2, Stalker 3, Stalker 4, and that's per individual pilot. So Stalker 1 is going to be assigned, and he's going to let you know, I am flying a little bird right now. So it's good to have a little bit of a notebook or your notepad up, and it's just write down, hey, Stalker 1 is a little bird, unarmed. And then Stalker 2 is going to be in a UH-60 Blackhawk. So you can write down in your notes, okay, Stalker 2 is in UH-60 Blackhawk. And then you're going to have Stalker 3. He's going to be like, hey, I'm in a Chinook, which is a very large bird. He can carry a lot of people. So you can be like, okay, Stalker 3 is going to be in the Chinook. It's nice to have those notes written down because it helps you clarify to what assets you have available. So whenever you check in as a JTAC, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get on long range 70, you're going to check in, and then you're going to ask your stalkers, hey, Stalker 1, what are you flying? Stalker 2, what are you flying? Stalker 3, what are you flying? And you're going to go down the list, and you're going to ask them, and you're going to write it down somewhere or have it in your notes just so you have it memorized or someplace to remember it so you don't forget which stalker is in which. There's one exception to that rule. They will not be a stalker and a number, and that's that Chinook right now that's landing. That Chinook that's landing is Stalker Heavy. Stalker Heavy is a logistics run because all the bases need supplies in order for us to build birds, tanks, equipment, trucks, anything we need. So Stalker Heavy is going to be a logistics aircraft. That is the only one that does not have a stalker and a number after it. So you can use them for transport if it's a dire need, but typically they're running off and doing something that's important to resupply the bases. So it's best to just kind of let them, do their resupply and only call them when it's necessary. So we'll recap the list. You've got your little birds, you got your Blackhawks, and you got your Chinooks. None of them have armaments, so they'll be stalkers. So this is going to now go to our demons. Our demons are going to be our armed aircraft. Clarification, armed helicopters. Demon 1 is going to be a pilot and a gunner collectively. So Demon 1, you might hear two different voices call over as Demon 1. That is because there is an AH-64 and a little bird with guns. It's going to be, should be two pilots. Keyword is should be. Sometimes Demon 2, which is in the little bird, sometimes they only have one pilot, but they really should have two. And that's kind of your job as a JTAC, is to be like, hey, don't take off until you have a second pilot. But focus on demons and understanding that you might get different voices at different times over it, but they are collectively one bird. So when we're trying to talk to Demon 1 and establishing communications with them, you're going to discuss over the long range 70, just like all the other birds, and you're going to be like, Demon 1, this is JTAC, go to position blah 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 blah. We'll get into holding positions and all that stuff later. But just understand that demons are not transport aircraft. They are armed aircraft. They're designed to fight or support the ground units in the fight. Your stalkers are your transport aircraft, and those are focused primarily on just inserting troops, CASevacs, which are emergency situations in which we need to get people out there, and exfils, in which it's not an emergency situation, you just need to get guys back to the FOB. We'll get into that. So yes, there is a CASevac heli specific call sign, but it's typically based on the unit. So there's a unit, which are pretty much PJs, or pararescue, and they're going to be called Banshee. However, you're not directly talking to a pilot most of the time, you're talking to the unit as a whole. PJs or Banshee typically has a small unit of 5 guys who are specifically stationed with a medical bird, and that is why sometimes it's important to have your short range set up to 190, because you can directly communicate with them when they're nearby. And if they're far away and you can't get them on short range, then you just call over 70, and their call sign is going to be Banshee. Oh, okay. All right. So now that we have an understanding of what birds we have, what their roles are, and the special conditions for some of the other birds, let's go ahead and pull up our map so we kind of have an understanding of how that works. So everybody hit M and pull up your map, and then scroll over to the Southwest Airfield. You're going to see the UH-60, the Bachala Island base. Just have that in your view on your map. So right now you can see me, and I'm going to be clicking with my mouse. You're going to see a yellow marker and me circling our area where we're kind of at. The map is your probably most important tool, and you're probably going to be spending 90% of your time in it, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be focusing on LZ marks and contact marks. So what the ground units are going to be doing, and let's use this for example, and it's going to be a test, is I'm going to put down an enemy mark on the airfield. Also, for useful purposes, it is important to know that make sure that you there's a when you double click to put down a mark, it's going to have a show to bracket at the bottom. You click on the bracket and make sure it's either on side channel or global channel. If you don't have it on side channel or global channel, no one is going to see your mark on the map. So you got to make sure it's on side channel or global channel so everybody can see it.
What's the difference between side channel and global channel?
Global channel and side channel is just what everybody is sitting on so they can view it on the map. There really isn't a big difference. Everybody's still going to see it. It's just it's got to be on one or the other. Depending on what server you're on, sometimes side channel can only see certain things, and then global can only see certain things. But on this server, side channel and global channel do the exact same thing. So when you double click, it's going to pop up, and you're going to see also a drop down that says stop. Under that bracket, you're going to have a lot of different options, such as the objective mark, flag mark, arrow mark, ambush mark, destroy, etc., etc., etc. And then you scroll down, and you're going to see things like infantry mark, motorized mark, mechanized mark. You got to make sure that you're going to see those marks on the ground that the ground forces, such as the assassins or the infantry, put down. They inform you that this was the last known location that we have of an enemy vehicle, enemy infantry, enemy motorized, mechanized, armor, and even anti-aircraft positions. So I'm going to go ahead and put down a infantry mark. I'm keeping it black for this purpose, but you're going to see it in red just so we're not messing with the people who are on the server right now. And I'm going to go ahead and put the description as test. You guys see my mark?
I see it.
So you guys' job as a JTAC is to be scouring the map in the AO. So our AO, I'm going to go ahead. Not a lot of people draw squares around it. It's really helpful when they do, but typically you'll see a lot of lines crossing. Like people will draw and you'll see, crazy lines going all over the place. You're going to see things pointing to the area that they're fighting in. So you get a good grasp of what the AO is. And every actual squad lead or whoever's leading the show should be sitting down with you and discussing what the plan of attack is. So let's go ahead and say that this airfield is the plan of attack and we're assaulting here, and you just got an enemy mark. What you can do is now contact your demons or your stalkers and inform them, hey, there's an infantry marked on the airfield. It's good to pass that information on to your actual or the CO, whoever's running the show, per se, and let them know, hey, you've got enemy infantry marked on the map. They're here. Don't call that over the long-range net, and don't talk to the infantry about that. Just pass it to actual. Actual's job is to talk to the infantry. It's not your job to talk to the infantry. It's your job to talk to the birds. So pass that over to the actual, inform them, hey, you've got infantry here. He'll give you some form of response like, hey, copy, or, infantry's going to handle it. Now, let's say that test mark is an anti-aircraft marker. Let's say someone called it in, hey, we've got a Shilka. A Shilka is a Russian form of anti-aircraft. It is very, very important as your job as a JTAC to understand the difference between what is armor marks and Shulka marks, because to a JTAC, anti-air and aircraft are your biggest enemy. Those are the things that shoot down your birds. So when you have a situation in which, let's say, the test mark is an anti-aircraft, you need to inform your birds on long range 70, break, all stations. This is JTAC. You have an enemy Shulka marked center of Bachala Island base. How copy? And then your stalkers and demons will let you know what's going on. It's very, 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 very important that you guys are paying attention to what is going on the map in the AO. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and pull out the map. Your job as a JTAC is you are a rifleman first, JTAC second. You're going to be following behind actual, and there are some points where you're going to be up at the front lines in the fight. There are going to be times where you're JTAC where you just need to tell people on the long range 70 or long range 30, stand by, I am in contact. When you call that over the net, all the pilots have a good understanding that you are very busy and trying not to die right now, and you're focusing on the fight. Just remember that after you're done fighting and the threats are taken out, that you call back over and say, I am no longer in contact, clear for communications. Because that then lets the birds know, hey, we can talk to JTAC again. Because there are going to be times where you guys just have enemies sneak up on you and you gotta get into the gunfight. So don't expect to just be sitting in the back doing nothing and just sitting on your map the entire time. You are a rifleman first, so you still need to fight in the fight and be paying attention to the map. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and open up the map again. Can everyone still see the map? Is it not too dark for you guys?
It's getting a little dark. Is there a way to eliminate it?
So there is. That's going to be my next thing. So if you cannot see it, you may already have it in the kit that you have, but you might have to put it on you. It is important that if you're going to make a kit for your JTAC, always have a flashlight on you. So when you go into the arsenal, you can go ahead and go through the list, and it's going to be the generic. It's a plus button. So either have it on your flak vest or your backpack or even your uniform. Go ahead and throw a flashlight in there, because what you could do is when you pull up your map, you're going to hit the control and the Windows button, and it's going to show flashlights, and then turn on whatever flashlight you have on you. So if you don't have one, go ahead and run to the arsenal crate real quick and grab one.
Well, another thing you could do is grabbing a pistol with flashlight, working too.
That works too. You just have to have some form of flashlight on you.
Do you ever use map tools, Goatman?
Sorry, I use the rugged tablet instead of map tools.
Ah. Wait, can you like make straight line marks with that, or?
No, you have to have map tools for that, but I don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I was just curious.
Oh, cool. So this one's red, I guess.
Yep. So, understanding that when you guys are walking around, the light sources in the game actually affect based on how you can see your map. So, it is very important to not just rely on light sources, because there's going to be times where you're just in the field and you have no light. So you have to have some form of flashlight that's on you. Scoop brought up a good point. If your sidearm has a flashlight, like a pistol flashlight on it, you can use that as well. However, it's best to just have that saved in your loadout.
Cool.
All right. So now that we have a kind of understanding how the map works, what to look for, let's go ahead and let's start going over LZs. I've got a bit of a pet peeve on this one. It kind of depends on who's running the show and what Actual says and if he accepts it, but I typically go off of that. The pilot has the last call on what the LZ is and where they're going to land. A lot of the times you can mark down an LZ any day and any time, and it's going to be on the map what looks like a really flat location, and it looks really clear, but when the pilot actually gets there, it's really not that clear. That's why sometimes it is very helpful as a JTAC, and it is one of your primary roles to clear LZs. One of the important things to do, though, is to make sure that when you're clearing an LZ that you inform your actual or your CO that, hey, I'm stepping away to go clear an LZ for our birds. I'll be back in 5 minutes. So they don't lose you or leave you behind or anything like that. So make sure that you go over your short range, or if you're nearby and you use your local chat, make sure you inform them that you're going to go clear an LZ for the birds to land. Typically, during the planning phase, a lot of the units, especially the squad leaders, including Phantom, will already have an LZ marked out. However, that LZ is up to the pilot, and it's his final call to if he is confident in landing there. One thing you'll learn from a lot of the pilots is that when it comes to nighttime, especially now, it's very hard to tell what is below them when they're trying to land. So leave it up to the pilot that you can mark out an LZ, and it doesn't matter how good you make it. It all depends on what they see from when they're in the sky. So it's best to just inform the pilots, hey, you've got the final call. Don't let anybody argue over that, and just let them make the decision to land the bird, because the care of the bird comes down to them, and they're the final line before whether or not it gets shot down or they land on something and break some rotors. Because if that bird crashes, we got to go send something out to fix it, and you really don't want to be running around doing that. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our map. So the airfield's a really good area for landing, i.e. it's an airfield, it's very flat. But as you can look at the map, you've got different numbers all over the place. You've got 15s, 16s, 5s, 9s, if you scroll around. Those are your elevation changes. That's what the elevation is sitting at. So you can see across the board, the map here, the airfield is relatively flat, all being at 15, 16. Let's go ahead and go a little bit further north and zoom in. Go up to the Al Ryan base. As you look around there, you're going to see a lot of different elevation changes. You've got 6, you've got 5, you've got 13s, you've got 14s and 17s. All those numbers are registering as different elevations. And then the lines around the numbers are what are called contour lines. Contour lines are what you use as reference on the map to show difference in elevation. And the further you zoom in on the map, the more detailed the contour lines are. So at Al Ryan base, you've got a little peak there that shows 17. And then you zoom in on it, it's got a bunch of lines going around it. Everything around there, despite some of the other hills, is around 5, 6, or 4. So that means that is a really tall hill right next to them. It is not a good idea to plant a bird on the 17 elevation mark. You want to find an area just to the east of it where it's 5 and 5, and it's a low and flat elevation. And then you'll also see on the map, yep, thank you for circling that. You'll also see on the map there are little green splotches. Those green splotches represent trees and foliage, and it's really, really bad to have your birds land in areas of that. So that area between 5 and 5, it's flat and it's clear of trees. So that is a perfect place to put in LZ. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, that's all what we can see from the map. Let's say the pilot gets over there and we don't see that there's a civilian shopping center right there, and they've got a bunch of little huts built up. That is the pilot's call, and he could call back and be like, hey, I can't land at 5-5. I'm going to go ahead and shift over and land near the road over here by 7-7, just to the left of it. And he'll inform you that he's got to shift from the mark. And that is why you need to have clear and concise communications with your pilots. So he shifts over there, he lands over at 7-7. Oh, wait. That's a main road. Main roads are your worst enemy and are probably hands down the worst LZs you can have in the game. It's flat as heck for pilots, and it's nice. However, there are things called IEDs that are a pilot's worst nightmare, especially when it's nighttime. Do not, and I repeat, do not put an LZ on top of a road until it's been cleared. Until you physically have an infantryman walk over there, or you yourself have walked along one of the main roads and checked the entire length of it for the size of a bird and said, yes, this area is clear, you will not put an LZ on a road. Period. That's just a good way to lose a bird for a really, really dumb reason, such as an IED. So it's best to just find an open field that's low and flat, like the 5-5 area, that doesn't have a whole lot of foliage, and they can land a bird there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I just want to point out that this is like a sort of micro idea, because we're like really zoomed in on a specific area.
Yeah.
Generally, the AO is going to be bigger. You're going to have more options, and there's going to be higher elevation changes.
Yeah. Again, if you go across the map and take 2 seconds to look around and just kind of zoom in at certain different areas, you see the numbers jump. You've got 50s, 40s, you'll get into the hundreds once you go further north. It's all different elevation changes. And that's why it's really important that your pilots, for one, they're looking at their map, which they are. The pilots are very competent, and the pilot positions are only given out to people who have already proven that they can fly well. It's not like we just hand out the pilot perms to anybody. So to go ahead and just put a little bit of trust in your pilots that they know what they're doing. So when they call over the net saying, I can't land here, they can't land there. And that's the end of it, and that's the end of discussion. Don't argue with them on it. They're the ones physically there. They're the ones flying the bird. Just be like, okay, dude, we'll try to find you a new one. Sorry for the bad LZ. The number one thing, too, other than do not land on IEDs, is when you're communicating with pilots, other than letting them know who you are and what call sign you're talking on, it's just plain talk. There's no fancy military discussion. You don't have to say, Stalker 1, this is JTAC, land, blah, 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 crazy communication stuff.
Stand by for 9 lap.
Arkashaw,
Yeah,
can you
we-
get on 70 and tell these guys to stop flying by us?
I think it's the Apache rearming, but yeah, I'll try and.
Why doesn't he go to the aircraft carrier?
I don't know. Probably because the aircraft carrier's boxes are blown up.
Oh, nice. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, now that we've kind of got an understanding of the way the elevation and contour lines work, let's go ahead and have each one of you go to the Ryan Oil West area, and each one of you put a LZ mark where you guys think is a good
I've
LZ.
never wanted to kill myself more. I hate night flying.
Remember, make sure that you're double-clicking to put the mark down. Make sure it's inside channel or global channel, and then put a mark, and then just put in test LZ and your name.
Bravo.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Have you tried landing at that with no nods? Mate, the IHAS helmet does not allow nods, so I can't see. So I've just had to have my gunner guide me in here.
Alright, cool. I'm being very super critical here. These are not bad LZs. However, I'm just going to kind of pick them apart a little bit. So RC, for your first one, that's a little close to the building and a little close to a road. You're really going to be demanding of the pilot to make sure that he's facing the right way. You can land there. However, you need to walk the bird on, is what we call it, and inform him that, hey, do not come from the north, do not come from the south. There's a building there. You need to come in from east to west so your wings don't, or your rotors don't clip the edge of that building. They most likely have enough room there, but I'm being very critical. Principal, for you, it's not a bad spot. However, you do have two forms of trees right to your west and east.
Yeah.
So again, it's not impossible, but again, you need to walk on the bird and explain to him, hey, come from the northeast or the southwest. Do not go straight north or south or east or west, because you're going to want to have your bird pointed in the direction that fits, because they're longer than they are wider. The only thing that limits their width is their rotor. So you don't want their tail rotor smacking a tree or anything like that. Scoob, yours is very good. However, again, you've got a little bit of a land, a building there. It's, and you got a tree. So again, like I said, you could walk on that bird there and be like, hey, come from the southwest, come from over the water, and head northeast and land at the LZ. It's not impossible. Those are not bad LZs at all. Again, I'm just being very nitpicky so you can kind of have an understanding of what commonly happens and what the pilot sees and how you have to communicate with them. And like I said, it doesn't have to be this very militaristic, Stalker 1, this is JTAC, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can just sometimes, if you already called them on the net, you can have a normal talk conversation like I'm having with you right now. You could be like, hey, Stalker 1, just want to let you know, come in from the southwest so you don't hit any of those buildings. The pilot's very chill. Now, there's a big old asterisk at the end of that. That is when you are talking on long range 70 to the birds. When you're on 30, it's best to just keep it the military talk. So you're not cutting over people because there's a lot of conversations happening there. That's where you really want to focus on, hey, using the proper, military communication, giving out your call sign, what radio frequency you're on, and using the correct call signs that you're talking to. So let's say you're talking to Assassin 1-1 or First Squad. Hey, for Assassin 1-1, this is JTAC. Just wanted to inform you that you've got 2 times military infantry coming from the north. You're using the proper military verbiage and you're informing him what is happening. It's very straight, concise. He gets all the information he needs. When you're talking to the bird, hey, Stalker 3, you got AA to your west. Go ahead and keep your eyes open from westward. That makes sense? There's a difference in which way you kind of talk to the pilots than it is when you talk to the infantry.
Yeah, because 30 is going to be much more crowded channel, right?
Yes, 30 is much more crowded, and then letting you plane talk when you're on long range 70, especially with the pilots, lets you guys kind of get a little bit more information and how the feel is for it. You use the military talk because you want to be clear and concise on what information needs to be and what's sent real quick. However, birds have a little bit more time and pilots have a little bit more time to discuss on what's going on. Typically, Assassin 1-1 isn't going to question you on what's being said when you tell them there's infantry coming from the north. They're not going to be like, oh, do you have an azimuth for me? Where, how many, like, what weapons are they carrying? Blah, blah, blah. They're not going to ask you that on long range 30 or local 100. Your pilot, however,
Gotcha.
could be asking, hey, is there, guerrillas, do they have a technical? Yeah, there's a technical there. Just make sure you're keeping your, self flying low, things like that. You can have a longer conversation with your pilots.
So I basically could use, let's just say, something like a 9-line, but not like a 9-line. For example, like, just let's say, Demon 1, this is Scoop. I have infantry in the open at the north of LC Scoop, blah, 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 whatsoever. So,
yeah, exactly. So I'm glad you brought up the 9-line. 9-lines are important for the bird to know, and they will hear it over the long range 30 because all the pilots are listening to it. However, 9-lines are for you as the JTAC. Again, that's where that concise, clear picture, and not everybody knows it, so sometimes you're not going to get it. We're not that milsim on the server, so don't worry about having to know a 9-line. Do not worry about that. You will get it, though. There are people who know it, and that's how they'll give the information to you, and it is very clear and concise. The pilots are listening on long... Yes. So you will have people who do know 9-lines, and they'll pass it up. It is not a big deal if you know it. You're going to kind of have a fixed position for your helicopter. So I'm going to go ahead, pull up your maps, and we're going to use Ryan Oil West. I'm going to go ahead and delete your guys' LZs there. All right. So you got Ryan Oil West. Let's say that you have an enemy tank column there, or a enemy motorized infantry. There's BMPs and stuff like that, and the infantry are pinned down on the bridge to the north of it. What you want to do is you want to have your demon in a position that, 1, keeps them protected, and 2, they can still viably hit their targets. So elevation, and again, now is coming into a very important role, because the best thing that protects your birds is the actual elevation and difference in grounds. So you've got a very wide lowland here on Ryan Oil West, and it's generally flat. Sending your demon out into the water is probably not a good idea. He can hold out here. However, there's nothing here between them and the enemy to block line of sight or them to notice that demon is sitting over here in the water. The best thing to do is actually go have him hold to the north, where there's a little bit of elevation and buildings, because if he needs to bug out and he's getting locked down, he can go ahead and fly north and get behind a mountain or a contour line up here to the far north. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So elevation is your helicopter's best friend in that sense. They can go ahead and they can peek over the hills, fire down at the Ryan Oil West, and have a place to fall back to in case they're getting locked on by an enemy anti-air.
And just a question.
Yep.
If you mind. If you
you're
don't mind.
You're good.
I've seen it earlier before on the server that you're most of the time employing hold positions and use them as battle positions too. Is that right?
Yes. So for this situation, let's say we were to have the helicopter, which Demon, we'll say it's Demon 1 is on station. Demon 1 all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control. And again, you got to make sure you're on the side channel. You're going to hit Control, and you're going to click, and you're just going to draw a circle where you want them to hold. I do circles. Some people do squares. It all depends on what you do as a JTAC. But then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a circle. So if you look to the north of the Ryan oil station, I put Demon 1 hold. So you can give them a circle.
Okay, I see that.
Again, everything that comes that's very similar to LZ's, it is up to the pilot. Now, like the other pilot said, that if your demon is sitting literally right on top of Ryan Oil West, where the AA is at, it's probably not a very good pilot. He's standing right next to the AA. He has nowhere to go to protect himself. However, if he goes further north, he's got a hill to protect him. And understand, Demon can use his weapons for miles and for kilometers out. They can really reach out and touch somebody. So they don't have to be sitting right on top of Ryan Oil West. They can be up here to the north, providing cover above the infantry who are trying to assault this across the bridge. So you do not need the birds sitting right on top of the infantry. They can be behind the infantry, sitting in a holding pattern, and the pilot knows to hold the correct elevation to properly fire on the objective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So now we've got a holding pattern 1. Let's say that Demon comes up and he says, hey, it's a good spot. However, at some point, the infantry is going to go, instead of hitting Ryan Oil West, they're going to push back and go hit Al Ryan base. For this example, they would probably hold the same holding spot. Let's say that they need to go to a different holding pattern. You already know that the plan of attack was to hit Ryan Oil West, come back, hit Ryan base. So what you can do is that you can have a second holding position, again, probably over here to the west, up here to the north, near Mapaha or Alfurcus, and you can just go ahead and draw another circle. So you got your elevation 42, 43, 37 kind of protecting him. He can dip behind the hills, but he can sit above it and fire down from that second demon holding position and fire on Al Ryan base. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You've got multiple options for Demon to use that are within a safe engagement range to lower the risk of him being shot down and to increase the lethality of them being able to fire on their targets. You got clear line of sight because that's the only hill in the way. There's no hills here in the way all the way down to this objective. It's clear. That's the only hill that's the highest one in the way, and they're using it as protection to fire on Al Ryan. And that's what you're looking for to give to your demons when you're looking at the map. That's why understanding and looking at the map and sitting down with your CO and actual and discussing with them, hey, this is what you're assaulting. This is the closest I'm comfortable of having demon and getting near the enemy position. So for aircraft, it's a little, or I'm sorry, fixed wing aircraft, so your jets, it's a little bit different. They can't just sit in a holding position. It's kind of like a shark. I don't know if you've ever known this, but a shark cannot stop swimming, otherwise it will die. It always has to be moving.
They drop to the ground.
Good analogy.
Your aircraft, your fixed-wing aircraft, your jets are the exact same thing. They cannot stop. So what you need to do is have a discussion with them. So let's say we own Al Ryan Oil West. We own Al Ryan and Al Ryan Base. We own everything that's south of that. That is all capped by us. But let's say Alfurcus and where Demon 1 Hold is and Mapafa are all taken. That's the enemy location, and we're about to strike that. What you're going to do is you don't want that aircraft to go ahead and get too far away because everything north of that is enemy. You don't want them going anything further than that objective because there's a risk of them getting shot down. So on your map, on the far left, it's a little hard now that it's nighttime, but if you and if your compass is in your way, you can left click on the compass and drag it around and move it, depending on where it is. But on the far left side of your screen, it doesn't matter how far you zoom in or zoom out, you're going to see numbers. You're going to see a 07, a 06, 05, 04, 03. You guys see those numbers on the far left of your screen?
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you have your latitude and longitudinal lines. You're going to go ahead and let the pilot know because you want to limit his progress north so he doesn't go across and go into flying to enemy territory. You're going to say your latitudinal, so that's going to be your side to side. Your latitudinal cap, so that means that's as far as he can go, is going to be, in this case, latitudinal degree 06. Longitudinal is going to be your up and down. So you're going to go ahead and draw that line. You don't even need to draw it. Most of your pilots know what the lateral 06 degree is. And so they'll have an understanding of, hey, do not cross this line. Because one, when the pilots are low and they fly over enemy objectives, they actually cause the AO, so that city that they fly over, to proc, which means that the AI kicks in and they know that there's enemy there, and they like to respond to that. So if your pilot is flying at like 3,000 and above, it's not really that big of a deal, but they're still at risk of being shot down.
Yeah,
but they're not procking the objective.
The gun early
but
there is probably
at the same time, you're limiting the amount of AA assets the enemy could have to be firing on that bird. So that's why it's also important, not only just for them procking the objectives, but at the same time, you're limiting the area that the lethality chances that the enemy has to hitting them. Because when it comes to AA, it's not like one AA is really going to take down a bird, because typically your Reaper or your Demons can clean that up pretty quickly. It's when there's multiples of them that are firing on them that it starts to get hectic for the pilots. And so when you put that lateral cap on it, hey, these are the only AA you ever got to worry about. Do not go further north than that. I usually try to keep it to 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers north, which is roughly about one of the square lengths. And leave it to that so that they don't have to worry about going north. However, there is a caveat to that. Another big asterisk. If there are enemy MiGs up, so enemy fixed wing or enemy jets that are coming by, they're going to have to do some dogfighting and evade those targets. You're going to see them once in a while cross that line just to get away from the enemy targets. You would like them to try to go south to where it's friendly airspace, so they're not having to fly over enemy AA, but at the same time, that pilot's going to do what he has to do to get those enemies off of him. So if he's telling you, hey, I've got MiGs on my rear, and they're trying to shoot me down, and he crosses that line, just give him a break on that. He's dealing with 2 jets trying to shoot him down. Do I have any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys.
No, not a problem, man. I have one question. If regarding fixed wing, do you create something like a station for holding patterns or stuff like that?
Are you talking about a specific altitude, Scoobs?
Not just a specific altitude, a specific point and altitude as a holding pattern.
So it's not in a designated specific spot. Like, you don't have to like limit them. So what you do is that typically they have an understanding of where the AO is, area of operations. So what we can do about that is you inform the pilot, this is the AO. So let's say that we're assaulting Mapala or Mapaha. Let's say that it's our objective. The pilot has an understanding that he needs to start doing circle patterns above that objective to hit the targets that are in that area. So your limiting line isn't a limit to the sense of, hey, you only have to fly east and west. What he can start doing is now doing circles around the AO. So yes and no. He has a holding area, but it's just the AO. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Makes things easier, I guess.
That's why it's really important too, and I don't know if I brought this up yet, but when you guys are sitting down for that meeting with your actual, and they're talking to all the squad leaders, it's really, really helpful to have your pilots there. Because if they already understand what the game plan is and what is being, what we're about to strike, they know where they're going to be. So they know where their holding pattern is. They know how they want to hold their circle. You can give them a holding circle, but at the same time, it's really up to the pilot at the end of the day.
All right. I'm just thinking about deconflicting airspace and kill boxes, right? So if you have like multiple assets, demons and whatnot on the objective, I mean, and you have artillery firing in, so I always think like it would be easier for me to deconflict if I create a holding pattern with stacked aircraft on one side of, let's say, Mapaha, somewhere southwest. You know what I mean?
Yep, I get exactly what you mean. So you brought up a good point. Let's say that Artie is being dropped on the AO. That is your responsibility because there are times when Artie is firing and when they're not firing, and you need to be listening into who is calling what. And that's where I came down to the filtering out the information. So let's say that there is Artie being dropped in on the objective. What you want to do is then inform the pilots that they need to look at the map, pay attention to where those shots are coming from, and have a good understanding of where the Artie is being fired from. So let's say, and if you didn't know this, the call sign for Artie is Paladin. So let's say Paladin
Savage.
or Savage. They're in a Paladin. Thank you. The Savage will be dropping rounds, and they'll only drop rounds when it's being called in over long range 40, correct, Arkasha?
Yep.
Yes. So long range 40 is the net that Artie is being called on. However, you're going to be hearing units like Phantom or the infantry. They're going to be calling out, hey, we are dropping Artie at this location. And as your job is JTAC, you're already paying attention to the map. You're going to see them put down the marks for where the Artie is going to be striking. So you need to be preemptive on that and inform the pilots that is a no-fly zone. You are not flying there. So you can circle it, square it, however you want, and you can just be like, do not fly here. So I know Arkasha is here, and he can put his 2 cents into that too, in understanding that a lot of the pilots are looking at the map at the same time. It does make your job easier, and especially now that the pilots are vetted and they have an understanding of what is going on. They've sat in the meeting, they know the plan. A lot of the times when they're listening over the long range 30s too, and they can hear what's being called in. A lot of the times the pilots are already tracking on that. Like, hey, I know there's already being dropped here. I'm going to avoid that area for now, and I'm going to go targets of opportunity. The only other thing that you can set up for this, and this is kind of leading into the next part of the class, is setting your priorities to what targets you want your birds to have. This isn't so much for stalkers, but it is for demons and reapers. For your demons, they have very good anti-ground capabilities. The Apache is very good at killing tanks, Shokas, any BMPs, any APCs that are on the ground. That is what the AH-64 is built for. They have anti-air capabilities, so enemy helicopters or jets, when they come up, they can shoot them down, but that's not what they excel at. And then the vice versa is that jets are fantastic at killing aircraft, are designed to kill aircraft, and can shoot down jets and helicopters like it's nothing. You need to use their roles and their priorities to their advantages that the aircraft has. So when you're talking with Demon and they get into their holding pattern, you need to discuss with Demon over the net and explain to him, or even in the meeting before, your priorities, Demon, are ground assets as your primary objective. Air assets are your secondary objective. And then when you're talking to Reaper, he understands that air assets are his primary and his secondary is ground targets. There is a caveat to this, and there's a lot of caveats in this class, trust me. This is another one of those, it's a gray area. If a bird is being shot by anti-air, he has every right to protect himself and take out the target. So let's say your jet is not, his primary is to take out any aircraft, but he's got AA locking him up. He has every right to protect himself as the pilot and go down there and drop a Helo bomb on top of the AA, or shoot it with the GAU-10 and the A-10 Warhawk.
GAU-8.
GAU-8, thank you. So just understand that the pilot has the final call on, hey, I need to go kill this so I am useful later on and I'm not shot down. And a lot of the pilots are very good about communicating that, hey, I'm being locked up to the east, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. Alright, let's get into the last thing about handling the birds. So, you've got all your stalkers set up, you've got all your demons set up, you've got your Reaper, they've sat through the meetings, they understand the plans, you've put down the LZs, you've informed everybody of what their priorities are, and you discussed with your stalkers that, hey, you have your initial insert. This is who you're taking in, and then afterwards you're going to take in any reinserts. So when people die, your stalkers are going to be informing you, hey, I've got 10 packs of my bird. I'm going to go reinsert them at so and so LZ. You just give them the green light. Now let's say that the Russians, in our scenario, it's the Russians, have decided to throw everything they've got against us. They've got AA up, there's helicopters up, there's enemy MiGs up, there's enemy Frogfoots up. They own the air. It is your call, and this is your most important job. It is your call as the JTAC to shut down airspace. Actual can sit there and say, I need this, and I need that, and I want this, and I want that. But at the end of the day, the birds cost resources, the people on the ground do not. It's kind of realistic to how real life and how the military treats other things. That F-22 jet costs millions of dollars. They're going to take care of it. It costs resources for us to build the jets. It costs resources for us to build helicopters. It costs resources for us to fuel and arm the guns on all those aircraft. So, unfortunately, there are going to be some times where you just need to go up to actual and be like, I cannot have a bird land here. I cannot have a demon in the AO. You need to go have your infantry take out those targets, and then I can have them start, reinserting people. They can start taking out targets. They can start pushing the objectives. You need to put on the big boy pants sometimes and just tell them nicely, don't argue with them about it, but just say, I cannot have the birds fly because they are just getting shot down, and it is a waste.
So safety is paramount.
Yes, exactly. The pilots and their birds are more important. It sounds really petty and kind of selfish, but it's absolutely true. The infantry can go ahead and respawn and reset and get in some. The trucks cost nothing to build. The Humvees and the Razors cost absolutely nothing. The birds, on the other hand, cost people hours and hours of transporting supplies. So focus on making sure that the birds are staying alive. That is your job. Number one job as JTAC at the end of the day is keeping your birds alive. Because when it comes down to it, the actual may not see that now, but he'll greatly appreciate the fact that he doesn't have to wait 2 hours because they cleared out all the anti-air, and now he can have his guys reinserted and have supplies dropped off, and they can pull out all the POWs that they find, pull out all the resources that they find. That is completely up to you and your job as the JTAC. So, you gotta put the big boy pants on and just say, I cannot do that right now. You're gonna have to fix the problem first, and then we can do it.
And there's a hierarchy to that too, because the pilots can do the same thing to you, because their primary safety is the safety of themselves.
Yep, exactly. If a pilot ever tells you I will not and I cannot do that, you just got to take it at the face value that they cannot do that. And that's typically when that's your red flag. Okay, the pilots are saying they can't do it. I'm going to go ahead and clear airspace. Does that kind of make sense, though?
Yeah, that's good to know that. There's an actual in-game cost to the aircraft. It's not just respawn.
It's very, because that's the thing is you're going to sit here and see people complaining, oh, why am I not getting airlifted? Why am I
an F-22?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The problem is that if they keep taking them in and they keep dying in them and we keep losing the birds, there aren't going to be any birds for us to use. And then they are stuck. So when we do have the opportunities to fly people in, to do paradrops, to do all the cool stuff, to have air assets on station, that's not going to be there.
Okay.
And some people don't have that clear picture because in the moment they're leading an entire squad and the squad leader is getting pissed off because he's not getting supports or resupplies or anything like that. That's fine. But he needs to understand that, yeah, I give you that bird now and it gets shot down. We don't have anything left for you later when we could have brought it in and you would have gotten your stuff.
Yeah. When it was more effective and less dangerous.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is you guys, you can also suggest, hey, maybe it's time to get the ground element spinning up. We can't cut it with the air. The air's getting shot down. It's time to let Butcher go do their job and start blowing stuff up. That's really, really important.
And there's going to be, I'm considering bringing this up in the future, but later on I'm going to be training the pilots more to be a moderator of the targets they engage to. Because right now we're having issues where aircraft are engaging every single armor target in the vicinity, including like gases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They really don't need to, and it's
Yep.
just making it boring for infantry.
Yep.
So in the future, pilots will be better trained to select their targets with consideration of what they absolutely need to engage or not.
So the way I work that is, and I've had a lot of, especially the demon pilots, kind of appreciate it, and that's where you can come and sit down with the priorities that I was talking about earlier. When you tell them that their priority objective is, you set that limit to what they're at. So when I talk to my demons, I am telling them your priorities are tanks, BMPs. They can ask to shoot at the, armored trucks and vehicles and the technicals and stuff like that, but you can just straight up and say, no, please save your ammo for something that's bigger. And this map is not, the Liberation is not a game mode in which everything is just static. It is very evolving and changing, and different things pop up at different times. So at that moment where it may seem cool to have your demon pilot, blow up a bunch of gases, which are just a little, military trucks with a gun on top, it may seem super cool, but after you took that objective, the Russians are sending a counterattack right now, and there's a bunch of T-72s and demons telling me they've got to go rearm because they're not ready for it.
Makes totally sense. Absolutely.
Again, this is probably going to be the last caveat because we're almost done with the class. The last caveat to that is that you're going to have infantry call in a lot of stuff, and that's why I said that you have your ears, the radio specific to which ear you have it set up. So like if you have your short range on your left ear and your long range on your right ear, it is really, really important to have them filtering out what is needed, because you're going to have guys who are going to be like, I've got a gas, I've got no AT, I'm down to 3 guys. That's probably a pretty good time to have the demon come by and swing by and hit that gas so that unit doesn't get wiped. But at the same time, if it's a full strength unit, they've got AT with them, and it's just a gas with a machine gun on top. Dude, you could just have your AT guy, put his big boy pants on and go shoot that thing, or shoot out the gunner, because they're capable of taking those things out as infantry. Being JTAC is very much a balancing act of what resources we have and how to efficiently use them. So at the end of the day, it is your job to really sit down and talk to the people. And this is where I go back to the Logi runs with the Stalker Heavy, and Ogre is the ground-based Logi runs. It's very important to sit down and kind of talk to them and see where the FOBs are sitting at on supplies. When you go into a FOB and you stand in it on the right of your screen, like as you can see right now, we're sitting at Alpha. We have 957 building supplies, 700 ammo, and 1,524 fuel. It's really important to look at that and be like, oh, okay, so we've got, that's a low stockpile, to be honest. It's not amazing, but we do have some supplies here. But if you go to another FOB and it says 000 for the green, the red, and the yellow, you got nothing. And if you got birds there, you might want to keep them alive and use them as a last resort.
Is there a way to access those from without the fob? So can I look at the supplies?
You have to physically be at the fob. Okay. That's why it's important to be in the planning phase. And like, if no one is looking at that and no one is saying anything, and they're making this plan, like, oh, we're going to send this in and send this in and send this in, go ahead and kind of send them a reality check and be like, hey, can we take a second to look at the supplies? Because you're not going to get that.
Okay.
It's kind of hard now. Oh, go ahead, Subes.
So what I take from all you're saying is that your main effort is to provide like indirect close air support instead of direct close air support. So you're not going to strafe targets. It's more like standoff use of standoff weapons.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so let's clarify on that, because there's a difference between having direct air support and then close by air support. So direct air support is when you already have air superiority. So let's use this as an example. We are fighting the Russians. Technically, by standards, when you're fighting the Russians, you have at no point at all any form of air superiority. it does not matter what you think, that it is clear. At some point, something is going to come in the sky and jack up your plans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say that we were fighting in the Middle East and you were fighting an insurgent force that doesn't have a lot of funds. You're most likely going to own the air the entire time. That is when you can have more direct and upfront, air support. They can get a little bit closer. They can sit and hold in holding patterns that are a little bit more, per se, risky. Again, it's that balancing act of lethality versus safety.
Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure. Sorry to interrupt you, man. Go ahead.
So all I'm saying is that you need to also evaluate the enemy that you're fighting, because this is not going to be the only server we ever play on. There's going to be different servers, different enemies, and things like that. And so when you start running into those situations in which you have different enemies and the scenarios are different, again, that is your job as JTAC to inform the birds, hey, we own the air. You can go a little bit more guns free. No, we don't own the air. You need to kind of pull back the reins on the pilots and making sure that they have an understanding of what is going on, so they're not just sitting there exposing themselves, getting too close to the enemy. Little things that matter on paper could be very significant when it actually happens in the game, because you can sit here and plan out the perfect plan in this game and then have it all just kind of whisked away because you weren't expecting something.
Like in real life, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure, I've been in 1998. So back then, in the German army, we didn't have anything going on about asymmetrical warfare. It was always still the big war between East, West, stuff like that, typically NATO Warsaw Pact scenario. So
conventional
I'm not really in the loop of asymmetrical warfare, because the Afghanistan and Iraq stuff all started when I was out already. So I just want to get it right with the terminology and understand how things are going today and how it is, and how it is, and translating to the game, because there is a certain translation to the game, right?
Yeah, of course. And so that is a good point to bring up too, is that there are definitely scenarios in which using some of the skills that you do know, especially from this class too, to translate into other things in the game as well. So having a good understanding of the logistics and where you're sitting at, having a good understanding of the communications and how people talk, having a good understanding of how the enemy reacts. A lot of the times you'll be sitting there, you'll cap an objective. It's good to just prep for a counterattack. The enemy, the AI is responsive. It's going to do something. It's not just going to let you plow through all the objectives and not make you fight for it. And so understanding a lot of the other assets of this game, not just being a JTAC, unequivocally helps you be a better JTAC. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So this class isn't the end-all be-all. You're going to be the best JTAC on the server and you can do whatever you want and you're going to do amazing. Having an understanding overall of how the gameplay works, how the enemy works, how the server's set up, and what are the threats that the birds are, sinking into, because objectively there is no life loss in this game. However, there is time loss. You've got a lot of people who are putting in the effort to sit here and put in time to get the supplies. Someone has to go around and get all the supplies and put it in the base and run around and drive and get all that stuff, and it's really frustrating for them to go see someone just get in a bird and then get shot down instantly and do nothing with it. So it is, again, that balancing act. As a JTAC, it is your responsibility to make sure that that is not happening. You've got a competent pilot who knows what they're doing. They have an understanding of what is the left and right lateral limits of their responsibilities and what are their primary and secondary objectives. And so once you have that solidified with them and you have good understanding and you've communicated that with them, send them free. Because a lot of the other stuff is just coming down to having what you understand of how Arma plays and the server, and then trusting your pilots. There's so many times that I can just tell Arkashot, hey, I need you to go pick up these guys. I don't even need to tell him to bring them back. I just tell him there's an LZ. Can you go pick them up? He already knows which fob to take them back to, because he's been paying attention. So you'll get that feeling and repertoire with all the pilots, and that's very, very important. And that's where I'm leading into, like, understanding how the flow and how all the other leadership works, and understanding what assets and, you know, your confidence in your pilots and building that is really, really important. Knowing what your pilots can and cannot do, because I'm assuming that once the next server comes up, there are going to be some people given pilot perms that are new, and they're good pilots, but they don't, you know, understand how the server's running things, and you know, they're still getting their feet wet when it comes to completing the objective. And so building a repertoire with them and having an understanding of who they are as a pilot is really helpful too. You know, you're going to have some guys who are very gung-ho hothead that you're going to have to kind of rein in and be like, nah, man, save your ammo. And then there's some, it's like, hey, man, if you want to go get a little bit more aggressive, you know, get out there, go shoot things, you know. And again, that is, JTAC is one of the most balancing act positions. I think that even more in a level of balancing than it is actual. Because actual can be more stressful because you've got a lot more information being thrown at you. However, as a JTAC, you have a lot more resources to deal with. And that's where the balancing act comes in. Because he doesn't have to worry about the resources unless it really comes down to ground assets and then understanding, hey, this is where I'm going to get my resupplies and stuff like that. He really, a lot of the actuals just put that on you. And that is your job as a JTAC, and they're right to do so. So there is a very good and basic understanding that you need to build up, and repertoire you need to build up with the people that you're playing with, because that's what makes it fun. Is at the end of the day, when you're JTACing, it is fun seeing the pilots go around and getting good kills. It's good to see that, you know, you don't have the guy sitting at the fob waiting for an hour getting bored. It's you get your enjoyment as JTAC by seeing things, other people doing things successfully. When the objective is taken and you have, you know, it's not just one or two people taking the objective, you have the entire platoon there. That's a good feeling, because you're the one who resupplied them, you're the one who got all that stuff wrangled together, and all the pilots have that same feeling too. So it's like, that is your reward. And some people, if that's not what you like, then don't be the JTAC. If it's too difficult to sit there and calmly talk to other people, don't do it. Just don't be a JTAC.
Well, I guess the main problem with that, or not the problem, but the main step you got to cross is to build up the self-esteem in yourself, to trust yourself to do what you got to do, right? So steep learning curve on the one side, and maybe if you're like a shy person, and a lot of people are actually, you maybe have something like a threshold you have to pass first before you're really able to do what you gotta do.
Exactly. Yeah, you get it's all coming down to, again, like you said, it is a very steep learning curve, and then once you guys start getting into it, I've given you guys the tools to do it. You have all the information, and I am confident in your abilities now after going through this class, that you can talk on birds to the objective and get the objective done. It is up to you now as JTACs to go out and get that repertoire built up with them, so then that you want to have that understanding as a pilot. And the only way you're going to get that is actually doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where's an appropriate place to practice, though? Because I don't want to go into the main server and just be like, hey, I took one short JTAC class. And,
a lot of people are gonna respect the fact that, hey, you sat down and did a class and you have a good understanding of it. Now, let's be honest about this. The way things happen and your actions as a JTAC fall back on me. So if I start getting messages, hey, this guy's not cutting it, I will have to have, we will have to talk about it and see if we can go over some things to help get you back up there. I'm not worried about that. Don't even have that as a thought in the back of your mind. The actuals are going to trust you. If you sat down with me, a lot of people have understand that this is a very efficient way to run JTAC, and that's what it comes down to. Is JTAC is to be efficient. That's the baseline. It's just the efficiency of it. You know, you don't have people waiting. You're not wasting supplies. You've got the birds on station. You don't have, oil, or I'm sorry, not oil, but gas being wasted because you've got birds bouncing around and stuff like that. Like, sitting down and understanding what the plan is and planning it out long before it ever happens is the most important step, and making sure you're there at that meeting when they're talking about what the plan is, because knowing is 90% of the battle, and then 10% is just effectively passing word and making sure that the job is getting done.
So I would say
Gotcha.
a good step to like get into it if you're like, a lot of times we run like 3, 4, 5 squad ops with like maybe platoon and company commanders. If a good step is to find like maybe a smaller op that still has air running for it, like maybe a 2 squad event or something.
Yeah, there's gonna be this is 24/7 server, so a good time to come in is if you're really nervous about it. Don't worry about it. Just
find when smaller volume.
Yep, because the less people there are, the less things you got to focus on, and that's really good way to focus on it. And then once you've gotten some time worked into it, where you've got a good feeling, you've ran JTAC a couple times, start volunteering to go be JTAC for the big attacks. There are a lot of times that there's big assaults going down and there is no JTAC because I'm not here or the other JTACs aren't here. I think there's like 5 people who actually volunteer, who, like, you guys are the first class of actually having people set down, this is what needs to happen as a JTAC. The other guys just kind of go up and they pick their big boy pants on, realize it's a role that needs to be filled, because it is helpful having someone wrangle in all the birds and get the pilots where they need to be, and let the pilots know what is going on, so the pilots aren't stuck being. And this is a big thing, and I'm my brain is rambling on this one, but this is a really, really big one. Some guy in the bird does not have the right to tell the pilot where to land.
Okay.
It is your decision and the pilot's decision to land that bird.
Not the squad leader or.
Nope.
I don't not like in real life, right?
Yes, they have to ask you, can I take these guys here? That is the job squad leader's responsibility, is to talk to you and get that set up so you can have a bird take them out to where they need to go. However, they discuss an LZ with you, and if you don't agree with the LZ, you need to tell them, hey, that LZ is too close, too dangerous, you need to move it.
Gotcha.
Normally, the first thing you do when you get into an aircraft with a pilot is switch to crew intercom. Because the default crew intercom channel is cargo, and that's what everybody else is going to be talking on. So you switch your crew intercom, you can hear the pilot a lot better.
Okay.
And most pilots should be on crew intercom. If they're not, just inform them to switch over.
All right. So we're going to come into the last part of the class. We've got some of the discussion stuff out of this. Let's go ahead and get on the map, go to the arsenal crate, and you're going to go to your GPS, and you're going to grab what is called the rugged tablet. Once you're done with that, come back in here.
Rugged tablet.
It's going to be under the GPS section on the left.
Okay.
We might have to do some setting work, so don't worry about that. I'll walk you through it.
Okay.
So here's my opinion on that. You're only going to get better at it by actually doing it. You're going to make mistakes. Sometimes birds are just going to get shot down. It's inevitable. You're going to have the time where something bad happens, and that's all part of learning with it. You know what I mean? So, yes, shadowing someone who already is JTACing is not a bad idea. However, it is also not a bad idea to talk to whoever's JTACing and be like, hey, can you go ahead and run it for like a half hour, depending how long you feel like playing or they feel like playing, and be like, hey, I'm going to shadow you for a couple minutes, but then after a while, can I go ahead and take lead, and then you kind of just coach me through it. Does that make sense?
That's probably how I would handle it if I was JTACing and someone asked if they wanted me to help them through it. I would give them the reins and coach them at the same time.
Yep, because what I want it to come down to is that at any point, and please, 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 if anybody tells you no on that, and they're like just being mean about it, please let an admin know, because they shouldn't be like that. We're all supposed to be teaching people. That's why I'm holding this class right now. You know, it's supposed to be everybody helping everyone kind of server. So if they are coming up to you and saying, no, I'm not doing that, let an admin know. The no one has a permanent role. Like, JTAC is not my role. People like me playing it, and I do enjoy it. But if someone else is already, like, if I see one of you guys in a JTAC slot, I'm not going to walk up to you and be like, hey, I'm JTAC, give me my slot. You know what I mean? So when you first load into the server, that's a really good question. When you first load into the server, at the top, you're going to have your platoon radio man, and then they're going to have the company radio man, which is about 3/4 of the way down. You need to be in the platoon radio man for the JTAC spot, because you're going to see platoon commander or platoon actual. You need to be just below him in that list. Make sure you're selecting that slot when you first join the server. If you first load in and you see that spot is taken, there's already a JTAC in. I lied. This is the last caveat. That is up until if someone who doesn't know what they're doing accidentally takes that spot. So it's really important to... Most likely someone is in that role already. If not, then you're good to go on long range 70, and it doesn't hurt to just be asking on long range 70, hey, is there anybody who is already JTACing? They say yeah, you'd be like, hey, where's your position? Can I come shadow you for a little bit? And then talk to them about, hey, can I just go ahead and shadow you for like an hour or two? And then can I take over and you just kind of coach me through a little bit? I don't think there's anybody in the server who's going to say no. And if they do say no, let someone know. Let an admin know, because they're not supposed to be like that. So don't worry about that. I firmly believe there's nobody that will actually say no to you. So, and if you see me on, please, please, please come ask to, you know, come JTAC and I'll coach you through it, because I have no problem helping you go. I'm a very much trial by fire and getting a good understanding of it by actually physically doing it. So you're all more than welcome to just come up and be like, hey, I see you're in JTAC. You mind me hopping on for a little bit and, you know, running with you? Perfect. If there's an idea that they don't like and they're talking to you about it, it's best to just not be argumentative about it. You can give your opinion on it, but if they shoot you down and say no, and this is actual, the actual shooting down your plan, it's best to just not argue about it and let it move on. Okay. He's running the whole show, and he's got a lot of stuff to be dealing with, and you may not be seeing the picture he's seeing, so it's best to just, hey, you know, and if someone else is, you know, passing word to you and actual says no and they're getting mad about it, be like, hey, actual told me no, sorry. That's about all I can do for it. And people are giving you crap for that, that's when you just call up an admin. I don't think anybody's going to be giving you crap about that, though. People have a pretty good understanding that JTAC and actual are probably the two most difficult jobs on the server. They're not going to give you too much crap about it. All right, so we all have our rugged tablets. You might have to do something here first. Go ahead and press H. You might accidentally ping Zeus. Let me know if something pops up other than a tablet on your screen.
Yeah, it pinged Zeus.
Copy. All right, Zeus is going to get mad at me. I don't care. All right, so what you guys need to do is you're going to hit escape.
Mm-hmm.
Go to configure, controls.
Okay. Keyboard.
And I think it's under comment. It's gonna be your ping Zeus. Give me 1 second.
It's
under last help on.
It's under Zeus. So keyboard, drop down menu for show. Go down to the Zeus category.
Zeus. Okay.
And it's just the Zeus key. I rebound mine to P because there's nothing on P.
No. So hang on. So yeah, okay, you can do that. I need H to be cleared, and I think it's Call Zeus, not just Zeus. It's Call Zeus.
I'm pretty sure it's just the Zeus key. Oh, let me default this real quick.
So mine is defaulted to Y.
Wait.
Or at least that Zeus is not called Zeus.
No, so when you hit the letter H on your keyboard, what pops up?
There's a little help menu on the right that says pinging Zeus.
Yeah, so you got hint last help.
When playing a Zeus scenario, yeah. Oh, okay, so it's not actually pinging them.
Yeah, you need to get the hint last help keybind and delete that.
Okay.
Let me find out where. Okay, last help. So it's gonna be under common,
Common.
and it's gonna be last help on the action side. And go ahead and just delete that.
Okay.
And then when you delete that and you get back in game and press H, it'll pull up a tablet.
Oh, cool. Got the
All right.
tablet.
So, are you there as well, Scoob?
Yeah, I'm already set, man.
Okay, cool. RC, you good?
Let's also just make
Yep.
sure it's not pulling up the
I'm good.
medical menu because it'll do this.
Yeah.
Is
So
that contextual?
H is also your ACE medical menu, but you also can access your ACE medical menu by hitting your Control and Windows key and then going to medical menu. So don't worry about that. You still have access to it. So you go ahead and hit H, and you're gonna have a tablet pop up. This is only when you have the rugged tablet in your inventory. You got to make sure you have that on you, especially as JTAC. So we're gonna get into a little bit of the limitations of the radio systems and how air quote realistic TFAR is. So TFAR likes to throw wrenches in your communication chain. So for example, you get too far out of range and people start flying too far away, you're going to get static communications with them, so you could barely hear them, or if they're too far, you're not going to hear them at all. So what TFAR is really helpful with is that you can go ahead and you're going to see the 4 buttons. You got a map button, a camera button, a video button, and then there's a chat window. Anybody who's on the server who has a rugged tablet on them right now, including your demons, you can see how you got Stalker 4 training, you've got Demon 1-1 in there, you can see me in there in class, you can see all 4 of us in class. So what you're going to do is to send someone a message, you're going to go ahead and click on, you're all going to send me a message. You're going to click on Class 1 Goatman, click on me, and then on the right, you're going to type in a message to say hi or test or something like that, and then send it to me on the C tab. You just got to click send. All right, got Pranciball. There we go, I got Scoob.
So it doesn't keep a does it keep a log of the messages?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep. So you guys are gonna see how on the top it sends you get you sent me a message. So I'm gonna send all of you a message back, and then to see that message, it's gonna be popped up on that same thing at the top, and it's gonna, if you don't open it, it's gonna be a closed envelope, and then if you have read it, it's gonna be an open. And then I don't really care about deleting it because it literally goes down a list down. So the newest one at the bottom is your most recent messages. But once birds are out of range, or you can't get communications with someone, because hills and buildings will block your communication. So if you've got a really large mountain between you and another, team that you're trying to talk to on either long range 30, or even birds like Reapers. Reapers go really far out because they're in jets. They're at high altitudes. Sometimes you just can't talk to them on the long range. You can go ahead and hop on here on the C tab and send them a message this way. So give me 1 second, I'll start sending all you guys a message.
Keep in mind with sending messages to things like Reaper is that inside the aircraft, the C-Tab functionality is primarily taken over by their HMD, or not their HMD, their MFD GPS system. So it's kind of difficult, but not impossible to respond. So they might not respond for some time until they get stable in the air and can.
Yeah, give them some time. They're gonna take a minute to respond, so please don't get angry at them if they're taking forever. But you all should have gotten a message back from me. I didn't send you one, Arkashaw. Sorry.
Hi.
So you just gotta click on the message; it'll open up, and then let's say that list is just getting absolutely obnoxiously huge, or you're getting spammed with. You can click on it and hit delete and all that other stuff. That's on you. The other thing that this has, and I know for the new server that this is going to be implemented, is you're not going to be able to see where everyone is. However, this tablet counts as a Blue Force tracker. So let's say that you're struggling to figure out where Demon went. Go ahead, pop up H, and you have the chat menu. At the bottom, there's a bunch of buttons. So on the bottom left, you got F1, that's Blue Force tracker. Bam. Now you got a map, and it will tell you where everyone is.
Wow.
So it's basically a BFT mixed with a data link.
Pretty much.
Nice.
And then F2, so there are helmet cams. If you hit F2, I don't think anybody has a helmet cam on right now.
There are a few
If there
people.
were,
It's a
when you
F3.
hit F2, you can put a helmet. Arcus,
It's F3.
Oh yeah, F3.
All right, F2, I'm sorry. F2 is your UAVs. F3 is helmet cans.
Do we have UAVs?
There is no
In the-
UAV up.
I got it.
Yes, they're in the server. Yes.
In the server? Oh, okay.
Yep. So now you can go ahead, click on someone and watch whatever they're doing and see, hey, they're running around and stuff like that. Your pilots still sometimes have theirs on if they're. Actually, Arkansas, do you guys have a helmet cam for the pilot helmets?
I generally don't, but I don't even think they work when you're in vehicles, or at least in
Gotcha.
aircraft. So.
Gotcha. So this is nice for the infantry. You can kind of see what's going on. Or, you know, hey, 1-1 just called a tank in front of him. I'm staring right at it. You can hop on his helmet cam, get an understanding of what he's seeing. And then your F4 is the text messages. F5 is your map tools. So you can go ahead and once you hang on one second. When you pull your map up, so the middle button is your main menu. You can go ahead and pull your map up, and then you can toggle your map tools, and it just takes off. This is really helpful for when you're trying to get degrees and positioning. So you're gonna get I think it's 7-digit grid, which is really strange.
No,
But
the CTAC.
6-digit grid. You're gonna get, so your mouse will follow wherever it is, and wherever that yellow line, the pointer ends up, it's gonna give you a 6-digit grid to where that's at. So let's say someone's calling something out to you.
So distance, elevation, and bearing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep. So you guys
That's
got to
nice,
work.
man.
And let's say that let's say a lot of times Actual will have a forward observer sitting with him for Artie. Let's say he goes down, and Actual's like, I need Artie on this now. You can go ahead and fill that role and call up, because now you guys know how to use the long range system. You can change your channels, your long range, and hop on 40, and then call in an Artie strike, and then hop back on 30. Do not ever go off of 70 though. 70 is your baby. That is you to talk to the birds.
Man,
You can
that thing is really useful.
Yep. And then you got maps texture stuff, so you can turn the textures off with F6. You can turn your text things off. You can close the interface. I don't think the font thing works. The little dot, the little square left of the mouse button that centers it back to you. So it's just a helpful tool to have and to make sure you guys have on you. So you can communicate when you're out of range with people. It's best you always have this on you as a JTAC. Like, you should never ever leave as a JTAC, leave a fob without this on you. And then 2, you can use it for tools and seeing what is going on and where troops are.
Can you place
So that is all I've got for you guys right now. Do I have any questions?
Yeah. Actually, can I set markers in the CTAP 2 in the RUC tablet?
Unfortunately, no.
All right.
You've got your medical general. You can set. You can lock UAV cams to it, and stuff like that. But you can
I was gonna
stuff.
say technically you can.
It's limited to what you have. I shouldn't say no.
All right.
Yeah, let me go get one real quick.
Yeah, because I think you can do the enemy salute.
See this as other people.
Yeah, you can do enemy salute.
You can put down like mechanized infantry, motorized infantry, armor, helicopter. Primarily, you're using this to have the people inform you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't appear on the regular map either, right? It's only on the C-tab.
Yep. Actually, I'm pretty sure it does pop up on the regular map. Let me test that real quick. I think it puts a time on it when you see it. I'm gonna go.
No. Oh wait. Hold on.
Yeah, because I put one south of Bravo on my C-tab, but I don't see it on the map.
To put an LZ out in the middle of the water. Looks like.
Yeah, I think it's limited to the just C-tab members only.
Yeah, most things don't show it or anything for that matter. It's mostly because the marks aren't like in the actual map system. And
Yeah.
you can mark stuff for yourself like that, but to make sure everybody can see it, it's best to just mark it on the map.
Yeah, just use the standard map. That's my go-to to that. All right. Do I have any last-minute questions before we end this? Going once, twice, 3 times. Sold. All right. So you guys are good to make sure you guys, if you're gonna try to JTAC now, I'm gonna be hopping off because I gotta go eat. But if you're gonna try to JTAC, make sure that we check to make sure that there's already a JTAC there. I don't need fights about I'm JTAC or whatever. If there is a JTAC, please go try to shadow him or follow him around. 2, make sure that you guys are using the tools that I gave you. 3, at the end of the day, it's up to you and the pilot's final call, unless actual tells you. Actual trumps all. And 4, if you're getting a lot of clapback on, decisions made or people really having issues with you saying no, that isn't actual, please contact an admin about it just so situations don't blow up to anything more than it needs to be. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys off with. You guys have a wonderful day, and if you have any questions over in the future, you can contact me in the Discord at any time. And if you see me in game, don't hesitate to come roll with me.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot, bro.
Yeah, thanks. for
Really
doing this class.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
You get a salute.
Thanks, guys.